It's always a joy to talk about money and very specifically personal finance. So this for me started when I was in 4th grade. My parents gave me a milk cow, like an actual cow that I had to milk. And my grandpa lived with us. He taught me how to milk. We had too much milk. We sold it. And so from 4th grade to 12th grade, I dealt with a lot of money. I was responsible for the entire business. I drugged my little sister along. And once I got done with all of that, it was enough money to put me through a 4-year private college, a legit business, right? I've always loved helping people with personal finance, and thank goodness to the internet today because I can do that nationwide.
Everyone actually thought I was going to be a teacher. Like, that's what everyone thought. I taught a kindergarten Sunday school class for like all 4 years of high school. I was like a tutor. I did all kinds of things with children, like my whole upbringing. I've always been really good at math. I always like numbers, and I sort of like the creativity that numbers can provide. Like, yes, the math's the math, but there's tons of different ways you can move things around or do something this way or that way. And so I always joke that even though I'm in mortgage, like that's my main gig, I am a teacher, just in a very different way, right?
I love talking about money and love helping people with money, and have an awesome team that helps me help more people with money, because it's not just about the education, right? It's about the implementation.
For sure. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified. I am your host, Jacqueline or Jax Crider, and today we have Miss Kim Butler, and she is an expert on a lot of things financial. She helps people do a lot of type planning and things like this. She's written, I think it's 11 books, but she can clarify that here momentarily for you. And so she's just as passionate about money as I am. So we are super excited to have her on the show today. So welcome, Kim. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and why you're excited to be on the show today.
Well, thank you, Jax. It's always a joy to talk about money and very specifically personal finance. So this for me started when I was in 4th grade. I promise I'll make the story short, because my parents gave me a milk cow, like an actual cow that I had to milk. And my grandpa lived with us. He taught me how to milk. We had too much milk. We sold it. And so from 4th grade to 12th grade, I dealt with a lot of money. I had registered Holsteins. I was very prolific in the 4-H space. So I sold and bought cows. I was responsible for the entire business. I drugged my little sister along. And once I got done with all of that, it was enough money to put me through a 4-year private college.
Wow.
And this is in the 80s. So yeah, it was a legit business, right? So fast forward, and I really just have always loved helping people with personal finance, and thank goodness to the internet today because I can do that nationwide, and it is an absolute joy. And then you picked up on our books in Amazon. I say our, right? Because everything is a team. Nobody does anything like this by themselves.
Agreed.
And I grew up in a house of educators. So my parents were not full-time farmers. They were teachers. And so reading was a thing. We did it all the time. We watched very, very little TV. And my mom was a kindergarten teacher. And so I think she taught me the love of teaching, number one, but also the love of reading. And so that sort of flowed into writing. And it's interesting, in today's world, one of my favorite things, again, I'll make this quick and then I'll answer your last question, which was, why do I want to be here today? But one of my favorite things to ask people is, how do they learn best? Because in today's world, thank goodness, we can read if we love to read. We can listen if we love to listen. So all my books are on Audibles, and I, like you, have lots of podcast episodes, and we get people to watch, right? Like video is a thing, and most podcasts are on videos too. So I love to ask people how they like to learn best. And so my favorite thing for today is, first of all, how cool your name is, Jax. I just love that. And second of all, I love talking about money and love helping people with money, and have an awesome team that helps me help more people with money, because it's not just about the education, right? It's about the implementation.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Well, no, I totally agree. And it's funny. Everyone actually thought I was going to be a teacher. Like, that's what everyone thought. I taught a kindergarten Sunday school class for like all 4 years of high school. I was like a tutor. I did all kinds of things with children, like my whole upbringing. And I actually also like money. My mom made me read Sound Mind Investing in 7th grade. I always joke about that. And so I've always been really good at math. I always like numbers, and I sort of like the creativity that numbers can provide. Like, yes, the math's the math, but there's a lot of different ways that you can skin a cat, so to say, right? Like, there's tons of different ways you can move things around or do something this way or that way. And it's kind of a beautiful level of creativity, I guess, if you will. And so I always joke that even though I'm in mortgage, like that's my main gig, I am a teacher just in a very different way, right? Like, and you and I were discussing a little bit before the show. I think nothing frustrates me more in that with as many options as we have in today's society, we have so many different ways we can learn, we have so many different ways we can get information, and we're still trying to follow somebody else's checklist when it comes to how we spend our money, what we should be spending our money on, how should we be saving our money and investing our money. And I think for me, that was part of the reason of creating Financial Mastery Simplified podcast to begin with, is I'm like, look, financial mastery, first of all, doesn't have to be done perfectly, right? It doesn't say financial perfect, mastery, right? Like that's not the thing. And I think so often we're trying to do that, right? Where we're just trying so hard to cram ourselves in a nice, neat little box. And then number two, we have more opportunity, more choices, more options, which albeit is a little overwhelming. I get a little overwhelmed by it at times. However, we can do whatever it is that floats our fancy, but we have to kind of figure that out. And money is a big piece of that because that's what we transactionally use, right? To like allow ourselves to live our lives.
I love to say money isn't everything, but it affects everything that matters. And so we must get our arms around this. And, so many people, they know what they don't want in life,
Correct.
but they're not clear on what they want. And because getting clear on what you want then enables you to align your money with whatever it is that you're doing, it makes so much more sense, but it isn't easy. And gosh, I wrote down the title of the show because the simplified part is so critical and it's so doable today. But I find that most of the quote money experts that are out there talking about money, and let's get really down to it, like cash flow, monthly, money in, money out, they get way too esoteric sometimes, and sometimes way too numerical and mathematical, or way too just big. And it doesn't need to be big, it just needs to work.
Yeah, no, I love that, and you're so right. I think so often people they're trying to be so perfect, right? And they need every little teeny tiny thing. And let's be real, with how fast paced our world is and how many things. I mean, think about the amount of transactions that flow in and out of your account every single day, whether it be credit cards or money flowing in and out of your bank accounts, like whatever kinds of transactions that you hold in your financial space. I guarantee you it's multiple per day. If
Oh, yeah.
you were to rewind this 40 or 50 years, there's no way that was the case, right? Like we were not having nearly the amount of transactions. And so I think this is where people shut down and they stop allowing themselves to be as successful as they could be, because what they're telling themselves is, well, I don't want to deal with that because everyone has told me that I need to have every single penny lined out, every single everything lined out. And like for me, I'm ADHD. That's super overwhelming thought, right? Like for me to sit down and be like, "Oh my gosh, I literally have to categorize everything and break it all out." And not only that, I think sometimes people are missing the mark on there is a lot of technology that can help you with this, right? Whether it be it's already built into like some of your bank accounts and credit card statements already, number one, or number two, there are services where you literally pay a very small fee and they're doing all of that for you with the help of technology, AI, and things like that, where they're breaking it up and saying, okay, you spend this much on entertainment, you spend this much on food, or whatever it is, right? And they're kind of breaking it all out for you. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be simplified. And so often I think we don't lean into our power because we're allowing ourselves to sit in overwhelm. And I'm going to be real with you. That's me 100%. Like I am a classic overthinker. We joke about when I started this podcast, I was going to wait like a good 9 months longer than when I started it because I needed to figure out all the little details and I needed to have everything just so. And the guy who helped me start my podcast was like, "Nope, we're not doing that." He's like, "We're recording it next week." And I was like, "No, no." And I share that story because, and I share that story all the time to show that a lot of times we are allowing ourselves to believe we need all this time and all this information and all these things and everything has to be laid out perfectly or whatever. And that's why we're not asking ourselves the hard questions to put ourselves on a path to success because we haven't spent the time because we're afraid of what it's going to come out and that it's going to be so overwhelming we're not going to be able to handle it. And it's not true.
So not true. And I will absolutely go on record stating that budgeting doesn't work. And a lot of what you talked about is that initial thing that so many financial people say, well, you have to have a budget. Well, clearly you have to have some sense of the money that you spend, but
For sure.
you do not have to have the detail. And if you look at our country's landscape, so, we're talking a couple hundred years, 250, I think, actually, pretty soon, it is a save first economy. The people that save as a verb, in other words, the act of putting money away, economy, get results. And so I have seen for years and years, our clients that figured out the save first game, and truly all of money and all of life can be looked at as a game, absolutely get what I believe most people are seeking as it relates to their money, which is peace of mind, confidence, ability to solve emergencies when they come up because they're going to,
For sure.
and take advantage of opportunities. And so that space, that peace of mind, the confidence, everybody knows they need an emergency fund, and most people probably already have one or they have a credit card that will do or something like that. But what I don't find is people going after that opportunity fund. And that is because, in my opinion, people in America are so much about the sizzle. Like, oh, what's the cool thing? What's that shiny object that I can go after? Well, that's investments. And so most financial people talk about investments. And yet, in reality, what creates an opportunity fund and what creates peace of mind and what creates confidence and ability to move forward in life is liquidity. It's cash. It's not investments. It's a savings account. It's a money market. It's
For
cash under
sure.
your mattress or in an envelope or wherever you keep it. And that's what that opportunity fund is. And in America, we don't want that. That's too slow and boring. So we don't do it.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And I agree with you. I think you still have to have a budget, if you will, of like kind of an idea, right? Like you said, like of where your money is going. And I think a lot of people, I think for budget, it becomes kind of a four-letter word for a lot of people.
Sure.
And the reason why is because of the old way, right? It's that idea of like, I have flashbacks of when my mom taught me to balance a checkbook, right? Like that's what kind of comes into my brain is like, checking every single little penny and making sure it all matches up just perfectly. And I think that part is exhausting and why people shy away. And so, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a budget. I've used that word like as in gaining awareness surrounding like where your money is actually going because I think a lot of times we don't have an awareness of what's actually happening to that respect, right? And that's what's kind of blowing up your life. It's not the $1,000 thing a month. It's the $5 here and $2 here and $10 there and $20 there. Like that's usually what's blowing up your life. But you're right, you do need like a plan. And I do agree that you have got to give yourself some flexibility, put some money aside that is liquid for not only the emergency situations, that's like one of them, right? But then also just to allow yourself the flexibility that if you see something that you really want to jump on, that you don't even have to look at your bank account. Like you just know that the answer can be yes for you. And it's definitely, like I said, it's an interesting concept that I think a lot of people don't see. And I will tell you that one of the reasons that some people struggle with home ownership is because we live in a society where it's all about right now, right now, right now, right now. that they're not necessarily planning for not only just buying the house, but then also what comes after. Because something breaks, yes, you may have a home warranty that helps bridge that gap, but it's still going to fall to you to be able to fix the thing or do whatever you have to do to make it work. And so a lot of times when we have conversations with people about money in specific in relation to buying houses, we talk to them a little bit about that, because if your account is at $0 or in the negative every single month, right? And there's no liquid amounts, and maybe you have a lot of money, like maybe all your money is sitting in your 401ks and your IRAs and all these things, which is great. There's nothing wrong with those investments. But if you're running yourself to nothing every single month, then guess what? It's probably not going to go well when your hot water heater goes and now you have to figure it out. I mean, you're either going to be taking real cold showers for a minute and possibly, sub-zero temps if you live in really far north area, or you're going to have to, what are you going to do? You're going to probably put in a high interest credit card or something like that or whatever, which isn't necessarily the right way to play the money game. Because I'm not anti-debt. I'm anti-debt out of we have no other choice.
Well, the whole debt discussion is super interesting in America, and there's so many very strong opinions on both sides of the table. I think you and I can both set that aside and talk about what is it that people can do to get good results. And I think homeownership is one of them, and it is largely because it forces us human beings, which, like you said, we're short-term thinkers. We don't want to actually do the work. Sometimes we think we like the idea of it.
For sure.
But I know lots of people that rent, and they rent because they say, I know myself. I will not keep the yard up. I will not do the maintenance that is necessary for a home. Maybe I travel a lot, or, whatever their reasons are. So that's fine. And it is not always a financial decision to actually make that decision around home ownership. Yes, we can look at somebody's situation and we can say, okay, with the history, home ownership is absolutely going to help you, and it generally appreciates, and et cetera, et cetera. Plus, it does provide some good required discipline because you have to make that mortgage payment every month, and that's good
Absolutely.
for you, et cetera, et cetera. We could get into a whole discussion around the 15-year versus the 30-year mortgage. Probably boring for most people, but as a general rule of thumb, what I think matters is having some structure to automate as much of your financial realm as you can so that you can go live your life and go to your kids' sports teams or attend the various things that you want to, or put a little bit more effort into your career so that you can actually make more money. And what I find for people that have sort of what we would call normal lives, they earn income, maybe there's spouse included as well, and they have some capacity. It's not really about the money that they make. It's more about the money that they keep. And that's why home ownership is a valuable thing, because that mortgage payment, which is forced, which gives us human beings some good discipline that we don't always have ourselves, has to be made. And that typically creates an asset that you're purchasing on the installment plan, right? That's what a mortgage is.
Right.
We often help people with a product called whole life insurance that you purchase on the installment plan. And just like we could have a huge long discussion about that, and probably nobody wants to, any case where you can automate things, so get on those monthly payments, automate asset building. So whether it's whole life, whether it's investments, whether it's your mortgage, any kind of automation that can occur, so helpful. And then what I have so much fun doing is helping those people that absolutely earn money, but think that they can't keep it. And so we have a structure that we put in place for people that drives behavior. And that's where us human beings have difficulty. I just told my workout partner this morning, who I have been with for over 30 years. Same gal. She lives in Scottsdale, Arizona. I live in Mount Enterprise, Texas. But I used to live in Scottsdale. And when I left, I knew I was moving to a super small town. And Zoom, or the precursor to Zoom, basically had just come into our world. And so I said, let's try. I mean, this is like, I don't remember, the year 2000. I said, let's try working out over Zoom. And we did it, and it's been effective. And I just said to her this morning, I am so grateful to you, because I, as a human being, wouldn't have the discipline and the stick to itiveness to
For
get the
sure.
results if I didn't have you. And so that accountability buddy, we basically need that for our money.
Yep. No, we do. So first of all, a couple of things that you said that kind of jarred some things in my brain. So first of all, I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of all of this starts with healing your inner self and your inner money wounds. Like I literally have a whole program called Financial Instincts Framework, because it's like teaching you what your financial instincts are, that they're not necessarily wrong. Like how do we tap into this power, and then how do we get over some of this junk that comes up, because we actually are all born with scarcity mentality, and a lot of people want to believe that that's not true. It really is true. And that just it's hardwired, because think about it. I mean, once upon a time we were cave people, and we were trying to look out for all perceived threats. Same thing with anything. That's what like the root of scarcity mentality is, right? And then the other thing I think of is, it's so funny. You were talking a little bit about homeownership, and I honestly think that it is a super successful and effective tool for most people. It's not for everybody. There's definitely people who have very specific ideas of how they want their money to look and grow, and homeownership's not a piece of that, and that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But, this whole idea of the 50-year mortgage has kind of become a thing. And it cracks me up because, of course, since all the circles that I'm a part of, and who I run with, I see all these people all over social media popping up about the 50-year mortgage, and how dare some professionals suggest that it's a good idea, and blah 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 blah. And I wanted to laugh about a lot of these conversations for a few reasons. Number one, I am pro helping people get what they want. And so affordability has become a huge problem in the last 10 or so years, because we have not had the income earns that we need, right, to be able to catch up with like what's happening with inflation and everything else. And so that's making it really hard for the younger generation to be able to buy a house if that is so their desire. Okay. And so stretching it out over a longer period of time does give them this ability to be able to do that if they so want, right? And so I am pro that. The other thing is, it cracks me up that the conversation we're having is that this option is the devil, when we allow for people to buy a car, which is well known as a depreciating asset. Okay. So home ownership is not a guarantee that your asset is going to go up and that you're going to make gobs and gobs of money. That's not the thing. But you have to understand there's other aspects to it, like tax benefits, and you are going to go ahead and pay some money down. And so as long as the house price stays flat or goes up, you will make money off of it, right? Maybe not as much as you like, but you hypothetically should make money off of it. And if you look over the course of time, that's been pretty well documented that that's a successful path. But we're going to allow you to buy a depreciating asset that potentially is 100K plus, because there are cars now
Yep.
that are 100, 150, more than that.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll allow you to finance it over 8 or 9 years. Okay. Where the car may not even mechanically last this entire stretch of time, and nobody's having that conversation. So the 50-year mortgage is the devil, but the depreciating car asset and loan is not. And so this is, again, like, I believe in a very free America where you have the right to make whatever decision you want. So if you want to put yourself in the position where you buy $100,000 car on a 7 or 8 or 9 year note, and you have a reason for that, and you've thought that through, and you have all the information, and you've been provided all the choices, by all means, baby, you do you. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Okay. All I'm saying is, it's ironic that we are vilifying another possible option and choice that is supposed to allow for more people to be able to come into that mix, have the dream of home ownership, have the affordability piece. And I'm like, help me make it make sense, experts, why you're vilifying this. I don't understand it.
It is so interesting how we can just react. And I think that, of course, the social media space is built on reactions, not
Of
helpful,
course.
but it is what it is. And yet it is interesting. I don't even know. Do you know, like, where did 30 years get picked? Like, how did the 30-year mortgage, which has like been around forever, how did that get chosen? Do you know?
I don't really know.
I don't either.
I suspect that if we were to look at it, let's say that you hypothetically bought a house at 18 or 20, something like that, and then we took and we added 30 years on top of that, we would get closest to your retirement age. And I do know that the average American has historically bought a home around the age of 35. So if we add 30 years to that, that would be 65, and that would
Right?
have you paying off your house roughly the time you retire. Okay. And so then your biggest bill, right, being housing, it wouldn't go away because you do still have like insurance and taxes. Like, so you do still have some, property taxes and homeowners insurance. So you do still have a little bit of expense. Although technically you don't have to pay homeowners insurance if you don't want to once your house is paid off. I
Yeah.
mean, arguably that's not a great idea in my personal opinion, but people
Agreed.
do it. And that, again, free America, you do you as far as that choice is concerned. But yeah, I mean, you do still have a little bit of cost associated, but your bill has gone from where it's typically about a third of your overall income pull to, very, very small. Right. And if some of the states have their way, because I know that Florida and Texas both are looking at doing away with property taxes, it then literally hypothetically could be zero. You would just be dealing with regular maintenance costs, right? And then if you choose to have the homeowner's insurance. But I suspect that that's kind of sort of where it came from. But a lot of it has to do with affordability because you have to remember something. And this is where it cracks me up that a lot of people don't look at homeownership as a true privilege, because it really, really is. Because if you roll all the way back, once upon a time, you had to have 20+% to put down in order to be able to even come close to qualifying. Then you had to have a damn near perfect credit score. You had to have a bunch of assets in addition to your down payment, okay? Because they wanted to make sure that if you, for some reason, got yourself in a pinch, like you got money in the bank to be able to pay this sucker, right? And so this then took a huge subset of the population and basically said, sorry guys, you
No
can't be
deal.
homeowners until you become wealthy. You can't be a homeowner, right? And again, we are a very free market society. And I think they said, okay, like, how do we figure out how we allow people to do it? And again, it's not just out of the goodness of their heart. Of course, they were looking at ways to make money too. Okay. So I always tell people, please understand that any decision that is made in the financial space, mortgage, investing, it doesn't matter what it is, their aim and their goal is to make money. Okay. No one's doing anything just out of the goodness of their heart because they just really like you as a person. That's not happening. Okay. And if you believe that, I've got some excellent oceanfront property in West Texas to sell you. So yeah, so please come talk to me about that. But it's just, I suspect that that's sort of where it came from. But again, a lot of this is coming out of an affordability place, right?
Right.
Because now you have to remind yourself, like, let's say hypothetically, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to bogart the conversation, but this is what I will say. Let's say hypothetically you took out a 50-year mortgage. Okay. And then let's say that you retire roughly 30 years into that 50-year mortgage. So now we've got 20 years remaining. We now have the option to convert that and do a reverse mortgage where you actually are not going to be making payments anymore on it. And so you actually could do what the intention probably of that original 30-year mortgage was, which is when we get you to retirement age, you don't have to then be paying this giant payment anymore. Okay.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Welcome to Financial Mastery Simplified, your go-to podcast for making smart money decisions. We break down complex financial topics into easy-to-understand advice you can use every day. Our experts cover everything from budgeting and saving to investing and retirement planning. We give you the tools to take control of your money and build the future you want. With Financial Mastery Simplified, you'll feel informed and empowered to make the best choices for your financial health. Tune in to Financial Mastery Simplified on your favorite podcast platform. Start your journey to financial confidence today.
Visit us at fms.tips and fms.college for more information.
Welcome to House U, where we believe in the power of education. At House U, we're more than just a brand. We're your partner in home ownership, dedicated to educating, equipping, and empowering you every step of the way. Education is at the heart of everything we do. We offer comprehensive resources designed to make home ownership simple and accessible for all. From understanding mortgage options to mastering home maintenance, HouseU provides the knowledge you need to make informed decisions with confidence. We host workshops and seminars, bringing together experts and community members to share insights and build a stronger, more informed community. Because when you're educated, you're empowered. HouseU, home ownership made simple for all. Visit our website or contact us today to start your journey with HouseU. Empower yourself with knowledge and embrace the joy of home ownership.
Thanks for your patience. Now back to our conversation.
And remind yourself, if you're renting, you're going to be paying that forever, because your landlord's not going to just out of the goodness of your heart when you retire say, okay, Kim, you're done. You don't have to pay me anymore.
Well, I do know a couple facts around this space that may be of interest to you.
For sure.
And the first is that 87 should be the new 65. So you mentioned age 65, right? We all know that age 65 is, quote, retirement age. Well, that was put into our society way back in the 30s.
Correct.
And if we would have, which we should have and didn't, move age 85 up as longevity went up,
right,
we would be looking at age 87. My husband is an absolute math geek. He owns a company called Truth Concepts. He has software out there that proves all this kind of thing. 87 is the new 65, which utterly shocks most people. Now, I will say in our family, I have both parents and in-laws in their mid-80s that are still working. It's part-time, it's work they enjoy.
Sure.
But because we know that they're probably going to live still another 20 or 30 years if they're healthy, easily an 85, 87-year-old could live another 20, 30 years. It just needs to be really thought about. The idea of retirement, the age 65 really needs to be thought about before somebody takes that step. And then interestingly enough, in the mortgage space, I too don't know where the original 30-year time frame came from. I'm guessing you're probably on the right track there. But a mortgage is actually, a mortgage payment specifically, is one of the things that is benefited by inflation. Because as we know, most mortgage payments stay level and whole life insurance premiums also stay level, another thing that is benefited by inflation. Whereas rent payments, K contributions, a lot of those other things are harmed by inflation.
Correct.
Plus, when you look at expenses, a 30-year time frame of an expense triples that expense. Like the check that you're writing is going to be the same, but because of what inflation does, it gets tripled. So you take somebody that's in their 60s, and I know people like this that actually did live in their home for 30 years, which you and I both know is rare.
Yeah, it is rare.
And what had been their mortgage payment is basically now their electric bill. Like, yeah, they got that mortgage paid off, which, by the way, I'm sure you know this, many of your listeners may not. The original word mortgage does mean to death. It's mortier.
Yeah, dead pledge.
Yep. And thankfully, banks cannot take our homes anymore when we don't pay them. So it's not till death anymore. Nevertheless, that's why people had mortgage burning parties, because they were so excited because that risk was off the table. But you have this situation where somebody had been making their mortgage payment all along. Like I said, I know a lot of people in this, and their mortgage payment's done, but their electric bill is as much as their mortgage payment. And that's what inflation does. So it's so important, kind of bringing back to my main message for people. It's so important to get the savings game down. Savings as a verb, the act of putting money away, and building savings as a noun, which is, is not home equity. That should not be your emergency fund, though it
Correct.
is sometimes. Shouldn't be the credit card, shouldn't be rating your K plan or various other things that people need to do. But to have that capacity to save as a verb so that they can build savings as a noun. And then that begs the question, well, where's the most efficient place to store that savings as a noun so that you get the peace of mind, the confidence, the control You said it so well. A free market economy requires a modicum of control of us as a human being, as well as of our money. That space is so taken away by the government, the financial institutions, the things that are outside of our control, whereas savings and liquidity is typically inside our control. And that really is what begets that confidence and that control that people have to truly live their lives the way they want.
Yeah, no, well, exactly. And I think that is the whole point, right? I think there are so many people, like, I can't tell you, I'm in all kinds of moms groups, and so oftentimes you have all these people that are like, well, I bought a house I regretted, or I did this financial decision, or there's an entire group that I'm a part of called Females in Finances, I think, on Facebook. And there's so often that it kind of cracks me up. I'm all about perspective, right? Again, that's why I created this podcast, because what I'm trying to do is give, my ideas, my opinions, as well as other people's ideas and opinions, right? Some experts in this space, some non-experts in this space, and sort of everybody, here thereof, to help give different ideas and opinions and things like that. But it's super important to understand that no matter what information I give you, no matter what information Kim gives you, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. You have to be making the call about your own life. And so we can give you great practical solutions or whatever, but I always tell people, you are a smart, powerful individual, right? Like, you have all the capability inside of you to be able to make good decisions. What you need is good information, right? So you need to be able to have the information in front of you, whatever tool you think is going to help you yield the result, okay? So whether that be software, whether that be a professional, right, an expert in the space, whether that be whatever, and then go with that. Because otherwise what's happening is it's like, oh, well, we got the checklist that said, okay, you finish high school and then you must go to college. Once you go to college, then you must get out there and get a big boy, big girl job. Okay, once you get that, now we got to buy a car. Okay, we need a brand new car. Once we buy a car, then next up is probably having some kids. Okay, cool. Oh, we got married and we have some kids, and then, like, but who said that's how it had to go? In fact, I tell the story frequently that I'm really good, like, in my space. I had a very clear understanding of how money worked, what all, so I had all of the information. And I also created a checklist for myself of the things that I wanted to do. And it was a little more aggressive timeline than maybe, like, the rest of the world's kind of checklist looking. But guess what? Life is a way of lifing and just sort of coming up on you. And so, as opposed to, getting out there, finishing my 4-year degree, getting my big girl job, getting married, having kids, mine dealt with getting a divorce, dealing with an abusive situation, right? Figuring out how to pay a mortgage on my own because I owned a house. We owned a house and now it was all mine. And, getting married later in life and having bonus kids and, melding all this stuff together, right? And then, if anybody have been watching this show for very long, we bought a very expensive big luxury property and then had it under contract for sale and it flooded. Did over $500,000 of damage to the house. And we had to deal with all of this. And when I'm telling you that every possible crazy ass thing could go wrong, went wrong, I am telling you. Literally the weirdest stuff, like, we had a special kind of moth that was eating some of my expensive wool rugs. We had somebody, when the house was staged, break into it. Like, just crazy, crazy stuff that in course of my entire life, right, for over 40 years, had never freaking happened. And then all of a sudden, it's like it cropped up all at one time. So and people say to me all the time, well, how did you not just crater? Because your financial house was a literal hot mess. I mean, still isn't perfect. Your credit was not perfect, right? Like, you teach about money, all this stuff or whatever. Guess what? Because all I can control is me and my actions and my emotions and the mentality that I hold, and the fact that I don't believe in a scarcity mentality. And I know that if I keep putting good out into the world and I keep helping people and I keep doing my part and my piece, that it is going to come to what I know in my heart of hearts will be my path. right? And that's what I can do. And money loves a plan. And so I am making the plan, right? And is it going exactly perfectly according to plan? No, but it rarely does that. If you've been living on the planet for more than a few years, you're pretty much well aware. My toddler can tell you life doesn't always go the way she's hoping it's going to go every single day. So it's just important for us to really remember that when it comes to financial mastery, really, no matter what practical advice I give you, the buck stops with you. It has to start in your mind, in your heart, in your center, and what you're looking for. And the rest of us, we can help put those puzzle pieces in place for you. But the one who has to like push them down and make them apart has to be you.
Yep. Well, my most recent book is actually called Busting the Scarcity Mindset.
I love that.
Yep. And it is a thing that I must do every day, sometimes every hour, sometimes every minute. And I too, though I have been helping people with their personal finances for my entire life, because of course, when you have money as a kid, all your friends will like, what are you doing? I have made some amazing money mistakes that would fill a book just like yours. And some of them are in our control and some of them have not been, just as your situation is.
For
And
sure.
so it is so helpful to know that our mindsets, which are free, right? We get the free choice every minute of every day, how we want to have our mindset be. And so it is so valuable to look at the lens of our mindset and our money as it relates to a prosperous point of view, which is why our company's called Prosperity Thinkers, because it's got to start in the thinking.
For sure.
And it must start with adopting that prosperity mindset, even if you're not feeling that. I got on, do you remember when Kiva.org first came out? It was a super cool charity, and you could give $25 because you were helping a family in Vietnam buy a pig or something like that.
Okay,
I got
yeah.
on Kiva.org one time and donated $25 because that's literally all I had at the time, because I knew that money needed to move and my money was not moving. And I knew that that would just help. Here I am. I've got food on the table tonight. And here's this family. They need a pig so that they can have food on the table tonight. It just shifted my perspectives.
For sure.
It's so awesome that there are so many things that we can do just with our mindset first, which again is totally free. And then we can use that mindset to take some steps with our money to match up with that so that we can get the results that we want. It's an awesome time to be alive in the monetary space today.
I completely agree. I agree in so many ways. And I absolutely love that you talk about the fact that it is a choice like every single minute. Like my mom used to say back in the day, have a good attitude, Jacqueline. Like I used to hear it a million times and it really annoyed me and I didn't like it and whatever. And I wouldn't necessarily say that attitude is necessarily the right word, but what she was getting at, right, is like basically choose a positive mindset. Like tap into that positive, mentality. And yeah, it isn't easy. And you're absolutely right. Like I think that the awakening for a lot of people has, is coming and has come. And like people are starting to wake up and realize like, because we have more ways to make money than we ever have had in the past, we have more options or whatever. And we also are feeling more of the squeeze, right? On, all the different things that have kind of been bubbling up from like all the different past. And so what I think that most people are going to find is this old adage of just follow the rule book and follow the path that everybody has charted out for you is no longer going to work. And so you are going to have to lean in and understand that, first of all, you don't have to be an expert. And even if you are an expert, right? Like if you're like Kim and I and you have a lot of information about money and you've had some majorly huge successes around money, that does not mean that this is not going to come for you, that you're not going to get tested and tried, and even sometimes more so, because there is going to be that huge like seed of doubt coming, right? Like in the pit of your stomach and things like that. And so I tell people all the time, I think what drives me most crazy about financial experts is the fact that they like to sit in their ivory tower and just sort of lob like little bits of wisdom across the thing. And they're not leaning in and like having some of the real conversations that they're real people and that they've really had these issues too, right? Like, I mean, just own your, pardon my French, but shit, bro. Like, None of us have been perfect. Like, it's okay. I don't mind sharing with people that some of the decisions that we made with this house were on us. And some of them were not on us, right? Some of them happened because of whatever. And of course, a perfect storm of the choices that we made and the choices that maybe kind of happened to us kind of just converged. But you really just, like I said, you have to lean in, and understand that true mastery doesn't come from how much money is sitting in your account. It doesn't come from how much information you have about how to earn money, how to make money, and all these things. And I have to remind myself of that all the time because I am a lifelong learner and I just want more information and more information, more information. Sometimes that's not doing anything for me. I just have to one foot in front of the other and walk forward. And so I just hope that people, when they watch this episode, what they take away is that, hey, you have the ability to be prosperous. You have the ability to live whatever life you so choose, but you have to choose it. And if you don't, then guess what? You're not going to be happy at the end of the day, and you're probably going to have a lot of regret, unfortunately. And that's not really a great feeling. And so give us kind of, Kim, any last minute thoughts you have. And also, I know you have a free offer. So kind of tell everybody what that looks like, just so we can kind of close us out.
Absolutely. Well, I would really like to invite all of your listeners to learn how savings saves the day. And savings really saves families and individuals. And yes, it is one of the more boring financial concepts. Yet in the little white paper that I've made available to your listeners, we are able to prove a $2 million difference made with just a normal American family with some very small savings as a verb, habit changes that we facilitate within this white paper. 4 specific steps, lays out exactly what people should do. And I'll leave the first one verbally and then say goodbye and thank you to you. And that is, please do not put your earned income into the checking account where you pay your bills. Do not put your earned income into the checking account where you pay your bills. And that's step 1. So if you're curious about step 2, 3, and 4, grab the white paper at the show note link that will be in the show notes. Thank you, Jax, for doing that. And it is prosperitythinkers.com/special.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this. Definitely, you know what I mean? Like, it's so important for us to have perspective and for us to just have conversations that are real and raw, because I think so many people are successful, quote unquote, on paper, right? They have made lots of money. Their 401ks may be sitting really beautifully large and just growing like crazy, and that's amazing, and I love that for them. But then they're not feeling financially successful, right? Like, they're not feeling like what they've accomplished matters or is enough, and there are just so many ways. And so I will encourage you, listeners, if you are looking for ways to kind of overcome some of these blocks, my program, which is called Financial Instincts Framework, basically what we are trying to do is help you understand, like, what are you naturally good at, right? Like, what are some of your financial strengths? And then what are some of the things that maybe are blocking you from reaching the true level of financial freedom that you actually really want to be at? Because for me, I had to do a lot of soul searching for that. I had to have a lot of things go wrong so I could realize that the program I set out for myself really wasn't working out the way that I had hoped, right? I was very, very financially successful on paper, but I didn't feel that way. I didn't own that. And so I think it's super important for people to remember, right, that you definitely hold all that power within you. And so lean into that. And so hopefully this episode was helpful. Again, thank you so much, Kim, for not only pouring out your knowledge and your expertise, but also giving something to all of our listeners that can help forward them in their own financial journeys and their own financial lives, because it's so important, right, to be able to do that. And so we will see you again next week on another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified.